Hi there, everyone. My name is Max Young, and I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of Vroman's Bookstore to tonight's virtual event. Tonight, we are lucky to have with us author Lea Carroll, who will be in conversation with Lian Dolan, discussing Mary's book, Somehow Saints, More Travels in Search of the Sanity. We're so grateful that all of you could come and join us tonight and that we're able to continue bringing you these authors throughout this time. Tonight's event does include a Q&A portion, so if you would like to ask Mary a question at any point, you can go ahead and click the Ask a Question button down here, and we'll get to that at some point in the event. And if you would like to purchase Mary's book from our bookstore, you can click that green button down there from our website. So with that all out of the way, I will go ahead and introduce our guests for tonight. Lea Carroll is the author of Saint Everywhere, a People Pick Award, or a People Pick book. Before raising children, she worked in travel, in the theater, and in Hollywood. While raising her children, she taught children's creative writing and helped her husband in his motion picture advertising business. A storyteller and a contributor to the book Hometown Pasadena, as well as a graduate of San Francisco State, she is a lifelong resident of Pasadena, California. And with her, Lian Dolan is a writer and broadcaster. She is the creator and host of Satellite Sisters, the award-winning and top-rated radio talk show she produces with her 4 sisters. She also created the popular podcast about modern motherhood titled The Chaos Chronicles, developed by Nick at Night for TV. Lian is the author of 2 Los Angeles Times best-selling novels, which are Helen of Pasadena and Elizabeth the First Wife, and is a regular columnist for the Pasadena magazine. So with that all out of the way, I will go ahead and let them take over. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Max. Thanks. Hey, Lea Carroll. Yeah. Is today your official pub date? Is today the pub date?
Well, it was yesterday.
Okay.
I'm late. No, but it's been on the market one day. In fact, yeah.
So please tell me then how you are the #1 bestseller at Vroman's this week. Ladies and gentlemen, Somehow Saints of Vroman's #1 bestseller. Congratulations. How does that feel?
Well, it's literally it feels amazing. It feels I'm also, this is the first time I've done a crowd cast, so I'm looking at all the people that are from all over the country. Many I know, many I don't know, and that's also quite amazing. I went into Vroman's today just to see if it was rumor, if it was true, and sure enough, by the back door there's a big green #1, and there it is. So,
well, congratulations. And we should take this moment. I know you and I both feel like Vroman's is this completely vital resource in not only in our community, but in our ecosystem of writers in Southern California, of which you are a part. Thank you, Max, and thank you, the whole team at Vroman's, for making these events possible and for getting the word out and for including us. Where would we be without Vroman's, Lea? Where would the town be? What do you think?
Yeah. I know it would be such a depressing. It really is one of those little hubs, like that you go get your coffee, you go walk in there. It's like a free Prozac, actually. You know, it's a very happy place.
It is. All right. So we're going to talk to Lea about her amazing new book, Somehow Saints. I'm a big fan of her writing and her storytelling and of her. I'm a big fan of her. But I just want to remind people that are here, please ask questions. If you see the Ask a Question toggle, that's the best place to put your questions. Continue to chat. Chat. Introduce yourselves. Let us know where you're from. But if you have a specific question of Lea, I'm going to be monitoring that. And then there's the green action button, as we say in the business, call to action. If you haven't purchased Somehow Saints yet, and you want to keep it at #1 of Vroman's, that's the button to do. So Lea, this is your second book about the Lady Saints. And why the Lady Saints? Like, what's the deal, Lea?
Well, you know what? I think they have a lot to say. And maybe that's why they're #1. You know, it's like they have a lot to say. And it got me thinking. I personally was at a crossroads in my life, like, what the heck am I going to do with myself if I'm healthy and energetic and I get to live to be 90, you know, because my kids had grown up and my husband had retired, and it's all that, like, that heavy lifting that you do in life. It seemed to be going away. And I didn't kind of know what to do. And I'd always wanted to get into my writing better, besides, you know, soccer sign-up sheets and stuff. and which is about the level. I mean, I don't want to diss myself, but that was about the level of, community articles and so forth. And I felt I could work with children very well because I thought, well, they won't judge me, so I felt a little freer to work with children than with my peers. When actually, I say this in the intro of the first book, when all the talk about Lean In came out, it just made me exhausted. I thought, oh my God, like that on top of everything. And I also thought, well, for women who truly leaned in, I mean, nobody's really talking about women who could bend reality, actually. And I just started thinking more about them. I thought nobody has written about them in a fresh way, like in a way that we could hear it today. And when I read about them, they were really made me tired, and I didn't have any sense of their energy, their personality, their quirkiness, because most of what's written about them is very dated and quite pious, right?
Right.
So I thought
a super sanitized version that you've either learned in catechism or fits neatly on a mass card, a prayer card,
like that, right? Yeah. And I thought, what if you could have fun with it? Like just have fun with it. And so that's where it kind of started. And I just tried to have as much fun doing it as possible and try to make them.
Had you always been a fan of female saints? Because you and I both grew up Catholic, so but saints are very important in Catholic religion, and sometimes they just stick. For a lot of women, I think Mary and the saints are actually more important than some of the other stuff that goes on. So had that been part of your upbringing?
No, not particularly, not in any meaningful way, really, not in any meaningful way. I had I would say a slight experience perhaps with the Virgin Mary when I was in my 40s. That felt very real to me. But
was it in a piece of toast or something?
What?
Did you see your face in some mac and cheese or what?
No, I mean, no. So, I mean, I had my last child when I was almost 42. And so, of course, everybody scares you about all this stuff that's going to go wrong. And had I been greedy to want 3 and like, why did I rock the boat? And this mantra popped into my head. Literally, this is, and the mantra was, if the Virgin Mary can do it in a manger, I can do it at the Huntington. If the Virgin Mary can do it in a manger, I can do it at the Huntington, which is, for those that you don't know, a very deluxe hospital that we have here.
It's like the Ritz-Carlton of hospital. Yeah, we're very lucky.
Yeah. And this actually, it was like really real. I thought, if she could do it in a manger, I can do it at the Huntington. And it was like this guiding thing. And it kind of really made a big impact on me. But it was 20 years beyond when I actually started writing. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So as you approach Somehow Saints, your first book was just lovely. It was a big hit. It was a people pick. What was different about doing a second book, and how'd you dig up more saints? What was the deal? What was the criteria this time?
Yeah, well, this is it, and the criteria was very different. I in the first book, was extremely leisurely. It took 20 years, not of me writing it, but of me living it, sort of. And my publisher, Colleen Dunn Bates, who is in the room, she said, "What about a sequel?" But she gave me a 6-month deadline, and I thought to myself, "Holy moly!" The first one took all those, couple decades. And so I had to be very, sharp about it. And I thought, of course, there are so many saints. It's like they're everywhere when you start to look. There's depending on how you, by how you slice the pie, there's anywhere from 800 to 1,500 saints. So, but I knew what my method is that I have to travel to the place, and I have to approach it as kind of as unschooled as possible, so that I can just take it in and not have a lot of pre-knowledge. And so in this book, there are quite a few saints that I couldn't hardly even pronounce their names, but it was really fun because everything was new and I could just bring whatever fresh impressions I had to it. So I knew I had to be on the East Coast already in DC. And I thought, well, I wonder what's around the DC area. And then when I realized you could get a train to Montreal for $77, I thought, well, what's in Montreal? And it turns out there's a lot up in Montreal, Quebec, and so forth. So
I don't think people think of saints as being American or Canadian. I think they think of them as wearing hair shirts and living in 11th century Italy. And so I was surprised when I read the book. I'm like, there's a lot of North American saints that you happen to dig up. So yeah. One of my favorites, I have to say, because it just thought, if there was a movie, Kate Winslet could play her, was Katherine Drexel. So tell us a little bit about her, and then I know I want you to read a little about her.
Okay.
But she was just incredibly unusual for a saint. She's like a saint who could be your great aunt, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Lian, when you get into it, they're all kind of this way. I mean, she's a easy, wonderful one to talk about because who doesn't want to know somebody who is rich, right? And so instantly she's interesting. And then you think of somebody who has every option of living any kind of life they want. They could have a huge manse on the Rhode Island coast if they're in Philadelphia, but no. So she really inspired me a lot because she's had so much chutzpah and so much vision for what society could be. Her era of activity was basically 1890 to the 1940s. And another thing I found
is is such near history, but also a time of tremendous change in America.
Yes.
So really fascinating.
Yes. Well, in researching and in traveling to all their shrines, each saint dropped me into their era. Was that 1770 to 1845? Was that 1320 to 1399? So I myself had a wonderful time, not only traveling to the shrines, but armchair traveling when I was reading about them. So that was cool. But Katherine Drexel, well, we kind of start out with her at the beginning. This book, like the first book, is illustrated by Joe Rohde. For those of you who don't know, Joe is, not only is he a neighbor and a friend, now a great friend, but he's an executive at Disney, and he designs all their imaginary lands. Like in Hawaii and Florida and the Bahamas and Caribbean. So honored I was to have him as the illustrator. Here's just an opening illustration of one of his illustrations. But did you want me to read you
read a little about Katherine, then we're going to cast the movie. But go ahead, yeah. Do it. Go for it.
Okay, here we go. I love reading to children. So, and now here I was, happily standing in one of the great railway stations in the country, DC's Union Station. Its architecture is so frescoed, so grand, a thrilling start to my train travels. There'd be 2.5 hours to look out the window at the things seldom seen from freeways. The backsides of wrecking yards, old factories, interesting polluted canals. In Philadelphia, my aim was to learn more about Katherine Drexel, the fabulous society heiress who became a saint. At the age of 25, Katherine and her 2 sisters inherited $14 million, quite a fortune in 1883. What was expected of Katherine was to make a brilliant marriage match and to take her place among her peers. But what she did do was cast her eyes upon the most mistreated and forgotten segments of society, African Americans and Native Americans. These were the others white people didn't want to interact with. For this, some call her the Mother Teresa of America. In fact, In that era, from 1890 through the 1940s, she had the chutzpah and the personality to attract hundreds of women to join her as she off-roaded across America, pioneering and advancing racial equality and education. So there's many more pages in that chapter, but that's just a little taste of how cool she was.
Right. Well, what struck me was, I mean, this is Drexel University. Like, they have everything, like all the buildings in Philadelphia are named after the Drexel family. And I was like, and they have a saint? I mean, that seems unbelievable. Most societies in America don't also have a saint. So what did you take away from Katherine's life? Like, when you go approach these saints and you visit them, part of it is historical, part of it is, you know, research, but you personally must take away something from these trips.
Definitely. And every one of them. And in this book, I also have some men in this one, although not that many, but maybe the next time. I don't know. I like women. The thing is that every single one of these people did way more than they thought they could do, right? They achieved incredible things. And some of it wasn't like all civic action and social reform. Some of it was like amazingly being able to write when like they were barely literate, but they would have bouts of mystical quiet where they were able to produce things. But Katherine, what she was able to do was look at society, and she was able to do something that we're told we all are supposed to be able to do, which is not, whenever we see the differences with people, we let those disappear. What we're supposed to see is the face of Jesus in everybody around us. And she was actually really able to do that, so that the people who were suffering became the object of her attention. And she was able to think really, really big. And I love that. And in reading about these people, you can't help but like have some of these qualities seep into yourself in your own, you know, we all use them in whatever level or however we're expressing our own lives. But it's very encouraging. I think that's what's cool about all of these saints, is that they strove for things way bigger than they knew they were capable of, but they were able to do it. Like, you know, and that's, I don't know, it's very inspiring.
Yeah, well, they were able, I mean, according to your books, to achieve it by really human solutions. I mean, I know that there's a whole protocol to go through to become a saint, miracles and whatnot. But like when you read Katherine Drexel's story, that was just hard work. That was just schlepping. That was recruiting. That was being able to communicate your mission, and then like getting in the trenches and doing the work. That's sort of the extraordinary thing about her, don't you think?
Totally. And I don't think a lot of times that's what I was trying to bring to it, like somebody who had that force of personality, right? And all of them, in one way or another, I wanted to try to bring their personalities alive, because how can you get people to do what you want them to do if you're not likable? You know? So
I mean, she could have been a politician. She could, like when I read her story, I was like, oh, she's Eleanor Roosevelt, but you know, with a little less, you know, chutzpah. It's just, you know, in a simpler outfit. So, all right. So we have a question from Debbie, which I love. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for being here tonight. So Debbie said, I'm really interested in your storytelling of women's saints. Will I have trouble relating to the stories or history not being raised a Catholic?
You know, that's a great question. I even say these are not religious books. Even though they deal, of course, with Catholic saints, and they deal quite a bit with where they draw their inspiration, which is through God and prayer. And the great quote from Mother Teresa is to rely more on God's strength than your weakness. So there's like that, but it's really much more like at Vroman's, it's listed in the travel section. In another bookstores, it was under memoir. And Barnes & Noble had it in spirituality. But it's really what I'm trying to do is use myself as a filter, a woman of completely today who wants to still, I still want to know what's out there in life. You know, I'm almost going to be 70, and I don't want to take on the rocking chair yet. So if you enjoy traveling, if you enjoy like having a glass of wine in a nice bar someplace, if you enjoy pondering over like big questions in life, then I think you would really enjoy it. And I have had several friends who are Jewish or who are not, or who are like totally recovering Catholics who would not really want this topic per se to read, and who would love them. So
I have to say, if that was a church, traveling, glass of wine, pondering things, I'd be in. That sounds good. That sounds good. Okay, here's another question from Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for being here tonight. So Michelle said, as a non-Catholic, I've been a member of the cult of St. Anthony ever since a Catholic friend told me to invoke him whenever I misplaced something. Oh, Michelle, we love you. Amazingly, the lost item was found. St. Anthony always comes through unless the item is genuinely lost, as opposed to misplaced. Are there other saints with particular helpful talents that we should know about? So any saints in this book that's like a mantra for anybody?
Well, you know, every saint has something that they are like the patron saint of. And St. Anthony is for lost objects. I mean, that's almost seems facetious or like kind of tiny, but you can apply it to big things. You can way bigger than your car keys, right? But I did have a very, very interesting experience with St. Kateri Tekakwitha, or Gediri Tekakwitha. It's a Mohawk name. So she's recently been named patron saint of the environment, you know, because she was from Native American tribe, the Mohawk up in the Canadian upstate New York. But for many years, hundreds of years, 150 years, something before that came to be, she was really a lot of people would turn to her when they had illness. And most particularly, she suffered from the effects of smallpox and blindness in her lifetime. But and so I was reading about her, and the more time I spent with her, and I was at her shrine, and I was at her tomb. Oh my goodness, you could really feel her energy or her presence, right? And to be able to do this, you can't be in a hurry, and you know, and I know that it's like there are periods when you can really be a lot closer to the energy of the saints, and then we all get distracted and we get busy with other things, and then it feels like something that was maybe like far away, and you have to work to bring it back. When I was really involved with her, I literally could tell that I had a sense of well-being that was not normal to me.
Wow.
And so honestly, I think that she would be somebody excellent to kind of learn more about and so forth. Then whenever
I should mention in the chat here, Danielle and James from St. Kateri Tekakwitha land are with us tonight. So we're welcoming some people from that part of the world. Thank you, James and Danielle, for being here. So yeah, you've invoked them, and they have appeared.
Oh, but that up from Canada then.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know, then you have others that you can really like. Saint Bridget of Kildare, right? She is known for
solid saint.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, but she's known for like there's a lot of lore attached to her, and if you believe something long enough, it becomes a fact. But nevertheless, it's fantastical, but it's a wonderful thing to sort of attach yourself to. For instance, in the lore attached with St. Bridget, who is so ancient, right? This is the 3rd century, and even well before even the goddess breed of whom she's in direct lineage with is pre-Christian and Celtic and all that. But her deal was that everything she looked upon increased in value, in abundance. Everything, the The butter never went to the bottom of the barrel. The ale was plentiful. The cows all had calves. The pouch was never empty. And so people for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years have taken that to heart when they bless their homes, right? Because they want their homes to be of great peace and abundance. And so, that's beautiful. And yeah.
So, Mary Lee, I should say too that this book, though it's called Somehow Saints, you have peppered this book with wonderful stories of just regular people that aren't saints. Everyone from hairdressers to physicians to your neighbors. You're a part of a very large family. There are wonderful stories about your mom and growing up. Why did you decide to do that? Because that's new for you. That's an expansion of your writing.
Right. Well, when the first title of the book was Saint Everywhere, because I thought, wow, if you look, they kind of are. But then as I became super, it sounds a little, I don't know if I should say this, but what began to totally fascinate me, Lian, is that this idea of goodness, right? After the first book, and about how your life can be whatever you choose or call it to be. And I thought, well, so I chose quite consciously to make sure that I could see goodness wherever I could possibly go,
okay,
and in whom I could possibly be with. And I began to think differently and sort of see people differently. And I thought, oh my God, there are so many cool people doing tiny, little awesome things all the time, all around us that we notice for a second and then go on. And I just wanted to do a kind of put a little light on that, because every single one of us have people in our lives that we think, oh, they're so great. Oh, I love that.
So we have people say that. Oh, she's such a saint.
Oh,
yeah.
So good. Yeah. I can't believe she did that. That was so nice. That was great. But a lot of times that's about as much as because we're busy, right? And so I just wanted to focus on that a little bit. Yeah.
Are there any, Natalie wants to know, it's a question from the group. Natalie wants to know, were there any saints you researched and were like, not for me? No, you just, okay. It was a self-selected group.
No. So here's the thing. It seems to me that, and the way I was able to select them was if I could travel to their shrine. Okay. So if I couldn't travel to their either to their relic or their shrine or their tomb, then I haven't been able to write about them, because I approached it that way through travel. So I don't, there's not any, it's hard. Some have a lot written about them because they're more modern, and some have quite a bit less written about them. Or in the case of Saint Anne, there's almost nothing written about her. And she, of course, just to remind everybody, she's the grandmother of Jesus. And so you just have to kind of realize Mary had to have had a mother. So whatever has grown up over the 2,000 and plus years around around Saint Anne has maybe not that much to do with fact, but it has a lot to do with sort of being a role model. And so that's how I approached it, is who wouldn't want a grandmother like her?
You know what? I had literally never thought that Jesus had a grandmother. That has never crossed my mind. Right? Yeah. Okay.
But,
now that you say it out loud.
Lian, if you go to Canada to this magnificent basilica of Beaupré, St. Anne's of Beaupré, they have an amazing relic of St. Anne. Now, as Catholics, we can choose to be playful and have fun like this, where'd they get St. Anne's arm? That's got to be as old as a dinosaur bone. But the provenance is magnificent. It's been in the hands of Christianity since the 7th century. Yeah. And I think, now I may get it wrong, but John Paul took it himself to Canada and gave it to Canada.
Put it in the carry-on? Put it in the papal carry-on?
Arm in arm.
Well, it's not called faith for nothing. Okay, so Mary Lee, I wanted to ask you this, and Andy wants to know too. You have sort of an extraordinary publishing story because you didn't write all along. How old were you when the first book came out, or roughly?
Yes.
Well, you just said you're almost 70, so you were in your 60s. So how does that happen? How do you stay motivated? And just tell us a little bit about your publishing story.
Well, it's a lot of doors sort of magically swung open is all I can say. I decided when I commenced to write this. So my short story is that all of my life since my 20s, I've endeavored to do creative works of art, like a lot of writing or painting or whatever. And I have a boneyard in my house of all of these things that never saw the light of day. Really, I mean, I would get like this close, or even all the way finished, and then I wouldn't know what to do with it. And you know that probably what that's like. Most people probably do. And when I realized I really felt like I had nothing, like all my excuses had been stripped away, so to speak, And I thought, look, I could take it easy for the next 30 years and be, I don't know, senile by the time I'm, whatever. Or I could really try to do something big, give myself a big wishful desire. That's what I did. I said, like somebody once said, you have to, in order to get some energy together, you have to excite be exciting to yourself instead of, and I thought, what could I do that I could be exciting to myself rather, and I thought, geez, I never did what I thought I always wanted to do. And if I don't do it now, so I told myself, I said, okay, I made 3. I thought if I'm going to go through the effort, to attempt to write a book, that I promised myself I would finish it, which was sort of new to me. That's
hard to do. Many people start books, and finishing at least the first draft is a real marker.
Yeah. And then I said I would do everything in my power to send it out into the world. And even if that meant standing on Lake Street in a sandwich sign. And I think, did I not see you in a sandwich sign with
I
Helen?
have done that for my publishing, yes.
I drove by Colorado Boulevard many years ago, and I thought, I didn't know you, but I thought, that's the woman who wrote that book.
Yeah.
Right? You were in a sandwich sign.
It's a terrible job writing. But yes, I did. Yeah, no, for Helen in Pasadena. Yes. So I just stood in the middle of Colorado Boulevard when the light changed, like trying to sell the book. So yeah,
I drove by, and you really inspired me. I thought, oh my God, look what she's so fearless.
Or no sense of humility, or what? Very humble, or just no pride, I guess.
Yeah, and so
you wrote it on spec. You wrote the first book on spec. You just went ahead and
totally. Right. I wrote it on spec. I told myself I wasn't going to worry. I wasn't going to worry about what to do with it. I would just take it a step at a time. And of course, I knew Colleen, who is my publisher, but I did not. We were in an exercise class, and I had heard her many a times say, I'm going to die if I get another unsolicited manuscript, because it's a lot of, and I thought, well, I'm not going to be that person. And I luckily have a friend, Mel, who's also in the house, who right when I was writing the first manuscript, invited me to join a writer's group she was starting. And I thought, I looked upstairs, I said, perfect timing. And I joined her writer's group, which only lasted a few months. It fell apart, but it gave me a lot to go on. Well, and the funny thing is, a year later, after that writing group, Mel called me one day out of the blue. It was the very day I had finished the script. I stood up from my desk, or not script, and I patted the stack of pages, and I said, I'm done. Did it. I'm done. And that very day, Mel called, and she said, whatever happened to that thing you were working on in our writers group last year? And I told her it was done. And she very, very generously, like instantaneously said, want me to be a first reader? And I thought, oh my God, why does the smartest, most acerbic, most clever, most I did not know this, that she's not cynical, but possibly cynical. And I thought, couldn't I just have a nice old granny read it and say, you did a good job, honey? But so I thought, okay, give it to Mel. And Mel generously read it right away. And she said, has Colleen seen this? And I said, well, no, she hasn't. And she said, Colleen should see it. So she handed it to Colleen, and then that's how it happened.
Yeah. But it's an amazing thing that you actually sat down and finished that manuscript, because I'm sure when you're out on book tour, I know every day, every week, I answer questions about how do I get a book published? How do I do this? What should I do? And it's sometimes the answer is simple. Sit down and finish the book. Like nothing happens till you finish the book. There's no publishing of something that doesn't exist. And it is an act of faith just doing that. So congratulations. So your friends are weighing in. Caroline wants you to know you are a saint. Mary Lee, you are our saint. That's what Caroline said. So there you go. All right, some more questions. Let's take some. Okay, I love this. Michelle wants to know any tips on how to invoke a saint. That's like a Harry Potter situation. What do you do? Do you call on them?
Yes.
Sage your house?
Completely. You just sit down in the quiet. You sit down where it's quiet. Everybody knows how to meditate. And so first of all, go to Wikipedia, find out a little bit about them. Right.
Buy your book. Hey, maybe you could buy the book. Find out pick a saint. Okay, go for it. Now go ahead.
Start by buying my book. No. Find out just a little bit about the person, and then meditate. Start by meditating. And you don't pray to a saint, right? That's not the thing. They are intercessionary. So you ask them to intercede to the great, the great universe. You can call God anything you want. The energy of the universe, God, Christ. But you go through the human form of who this person was, and they become like, well, they're like my friends now, really, actually. And the more time you just give to them, like when you take your walk or something, you say, well, this walk, I'm going to just think about the qualities of St. Bridget, or I'm going to think about the qualities of Katherine Drexel, who was very fearless and bold, and wouldn't be denied. Like she had challenges. She stood up against the Ku Klux Klan, And if you want those qualities, then you just start thinking about it and ask for it. Ask for it.
That's just good advice for anything. Okay, so another question. We have some good questions here. Rose wants to know, have you had any aha moments while writing the book?
Sure. Sure. The one of the big aha moments I've had while writing the book, it wasn't particular to one thing, but this is what it is that one's life can be whatever you say it is. And so that's kind of contradictory, because you have to say it's whatever you make it. No, you start by calling it what you want it to be. And I could not imagine being where I am today 5 years ago if you had given me the island of Bahrain. There was not a hint until I started to ask for it and to like allow myself to want what I actually really wanted, like in my heart. And that was made very clear during the second book, the writing of this.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's see what else we have here. Like these questions. Okay. Will there be more live events for book clubs? Natalie wants to know. Are you doing? What's your schedule?
Well, everybody, my schedule's pretty open. It's pretty open. We have published a book club guide.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that. And nothing would make me more happy than to be able to drop in on on your book club somewhere, anywhere. So I would say the answer is a big yes from me, and I've got plenty of time.
Okay. All right. So you have a website, so people for that should go to your website.
It's very cleverly named MaryLeeCarroll.com.
I like it.
It's kind of a trick.
I like it. You know, I mentioned that there are a lot of stories about your family in the book. And I know this, I'm one of 8, you're one of 9, correct? So what number are you, Mary Lee?
5.
5. Okay. I mean, you know, what was that? I mean, I know what it was like to grow up in my giant family. What was it like to grow up in your giant family? I love the stories that are sprinkled throughout the book, because in big families, usually there's 2 ways to roll. There's military style organization, and then there's just complete free-for-all. How would you describe your family?
I think it was free-for-all. Totally free-for-all. I mean, it was a little bit, the only way you could survive in my family is that if you had a sense of humor. So otherwise it was pretty weird. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why we were pretty merciless with each other. But you know, my mother was an only child. Her parents were an old movie star and a pie in the sky Irish guy who loved to drink and didn't do so well in business. So she didn't have really good mothering skills. And my dad, you know, I don't know. He was just like, he withdrew. We were all too much energy. Like he'd come home from work and go behind the newspaper, and that was about it. But it was during the 60s, and a lot of big personalities in my family. We had a great big house in Altadena, and we always had our friends over. We'd have these giant neighborhood games all the time. I was like always really good in growing up, and I could see that my older brothers and sisters caused my parents a lot of anguish in their rebellion, all their various forms of rebellion. And I wasn't like that. I was like trying to always be good, you know. But that being said, you know, my mother had a few strange pieces of advice. She says, well, you know, having a lot of kids is like making pancakes. Sometimes you just have to throw the first one out. And so and my grandmother lived with us, and she's an old movie star, and she was really hard of hearing. And so my parents left one weekend, and my sister, who was 11, was in charge of all of us. And
that's a classic move. Let's put the 16-year-old in charge of everybody.
No. She was 11. She was 11? Yes, but my grandmother lived in the converted garage there, so they felt okay. But she was so hard of hearing, and also so kind of personally selfish. So she didn't want to deal with anything. And an example of how helpful my own grandmother was is that, so my parents are gone. My sister is 11. She's making breakfast for all of us, and she is making a big pan of scrambled eggs. My grandmother comes in, and she looks into the pan, and she says, "Those are the worst looking pancakes I ever saw." And my sister says, "Well, Grandma, they're not pancakes. They're eggs." So. Yeah.
So, okay. So then I have to ask, because you told me this the other day, we were having coffee. I was like, what? So your grandmother was actually the little old lady from Pasadena, correct? Because I've been accused of that many times, or people will say, you know, "Oh, you little old lady." I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's a stupid song. But no, those are your relatives, and that's your grandmother. Tell people that who aren't from Pasadena. That was amazing.
Well, you know, so my cousin was Jan of Jan and Dean, who made the song, right? And of course, she didn't have every aspect of the little old lady. She had her own. She was quite a thing. But they wrote the song, which actually started as an advertising jingle for Dodge Dart cars. But anyway, they dedicated it to her. She was a sales lady for the Star News at that time. People all over Pasadena knew her because she went to the Santa Anita racetrack every single day during racing season. And she dropped in on every merchant on Colorado and Lake and to sell ads for the Star News, but she was always all dressed up, and she was a big character, and she was a terrible driver. She didn't learn to drive till she was 59 years old, and she was just a big character. And so when the song came out, everybody knew it, and we loved it here in Pasadena. And because Jan was our cousins and they had dedicated it to her, she took that on, and people, like, it helped her in her business. It helped her sell ads.
I'm sure it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mel is saying, tell the car on fire story. What's the car on fire story?
Oh my God. Well, I don't know how much time do we have.
Okay, we have a few more minutes. So this is the last audience question. Then I have one more question to wrap up with you.
Okay, so my grandmother, she had a really unique voice. She was very tiny. She had a silver bubble and rhinestone glasses, and she spoke like she had smoked her whole. Well, she had smoked her whole life, but she talked like this. What do you mean? What do you mean? So when she lost her license, she would ask, and very coyly ask, well, you want to go to Santa Anita today? You want to go to the racetrack today? And she'd like lure you in. I'll pay like the $3 to get in. So one day, and she drove a Corvair, right? Unsafe at any speed. And she had her whole front of her car, the dashboard was all melted because she had all her cigarette fires in her ashtray. And then the ashtray would catch on fire and it would melt all the instruments. So it was all melted. And her car was full of newspapers from the ads she was selling. She'd do stuff and throw it in the back seat, So one day she got a friend of my mom's to go with her to the racetrack. And her name was famously Dora Depew, also had 9 kids. And Dora said, I got to be home by 3:00, Ruth, to pick up all my kids from school. And Ruthie said, no problem. I'll pick you up at 12:00. We'll be there at 12:30 in time for post time. And so Dora says, okay. So Dora lived on Atchison Street. We lived up in Altadena. Ruth, my grandmother, never knew when her blinkers were on or off and would drive like, terrible. So picks up Dora, and they're going down Lake Avenue. And Dora says, Ruth, I smell smoke. Something smells like it's burning. And she goes, oh no. She's got to say, oh no, cigarette ashes everywhere. Oh no. And now they're at Lake in Colorado. Ruth, no, I think, look, my gosh, Ruth, smoke is coming out of the back seat. So she's driving and she turns and she goes, oh Christ. And so they're driving. Now they're along Colorado headed to Santa Anita, and Dora turns around and the seat's now on fire, her back seat. So my grandmother goes, oh, for heaven's sakes. And she pulls into a gas station, and they pull up to a gas pump, and she rolls the window down. She yells, young man, come over here. And the attendant comes over and says, young man, is my car on fire? And he says, oh my gosh, yes, ma'am, it is. And my grandmother says, oh, cripes. And she steps on the gas and she drives off. And Dora says, what are you doing? And Ruth turns to her and says, do you want to go to the races or not? Let's just get there. We'll give the car to valet. And that's what they did. The car was on fire. They get to valet, and she says, young man, take care of this car. And they race into the track.
Ladies and gentlemen, the little old lady from Pasadena with Mary Lea Carroll. Okay, we're wrapping up. This has been
so not fun. The topic of tonight, though.
But you know what, though? You take requests. I appreciate that. Well, again, though, I mean, storytelling is storytelling, and I think that comes through in the book, whether you're writing about people that lived hundreds of years ago or someone you've encountered recently that you've just become fascinated with. I think that's a lovely quality. So I just want to ask, we're wrapping up here, a big thanks to everyone who's come. I can't encourage you enough to visit the Vroman site. You see the green button, purchase Somehow Saints. Wherever you are across the country, you can check it out at your various indie bookstores. We love our Vromans here in Pasadena. But I did want to end, not a serious note, but this has been a really hard year, Mary Lee, and 2020 it looks like a couple more really tough months ahead of us, especially coming up on Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. People are going to be separated from their family. The first quarter of the year is looking like we're still going to really have to lay low. I feel like we need a patron saint for this next 6 months. Is there someone you can recommend? Who should we invoke? Please.
No,
Mary Lee.
I'll tell you. It's like you have to pick the one that works for you. It's not who, but I will tell you, each of these wonderful, wonderful people, they truly lived. They were truly humans. And they all had to deal with things way worse in many cases than what we have to deal with. And they truly dealt with repeated disappointments. And they always, one of the whole things is like, can you meet an obstacle with cheerfulness? And I look to them as like, this is a time where we have to be bigger than our like, we're all feeling badly because we don't get things the way we want. We're not going to be able to do things. But what I take away is that, we make it better. We make it better by meeting everything we can with cheer, and with an optimistic heart that even if it takes a long time to get better, we're bigger than the situation that we're in.
Okay, so find the saint that works for you, but that approach with optimism. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful to talk to you, Mary Lee. So many great people. So sign in. You still have a few minutes. Let Mary Lee know you're here. She can scroll through the chat. People are really enjoying this. Colorful tales of eccentric relatives are always a pleasure. On road.
Lian, it really is just an amazing technology, and on my end of it, to see the array of people that are here and for us to be able to communicate is it's marvelous.
It is marvelous. I mean, there are some certainly downsides to this, but I think the extraordinary idea that people staying connected and sharing stories and sharing moments, and that's available whether you're looking at a laptop or looking at your phone or you're sitting, on the other side of the country, or I know some of these people are. I think it's extraordinary. So, sort of keeping in touch with humanity is a lot of the message of your book, that these women did extraordinary things that helped, that just really accentuated their humanity, even though they're saints now. And maybe Crowdcast isn't like humanity at its best, but it's pretty good, Mary Lee. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I wish everybody who dropped in, I just wish you a beautiful evening. I really appreciate you being here. Email me or call me or let's go have coffee with our masks on, or I really appreciate you being here. And Lian, thank you for I'm in the pro, everybody.
My absolute pleasure. Okay, thank you, Max at Vromans, and thank you, Vromans. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. Way to go, Mary Lee. Number one with the bullet at Vromans. Somehow Saints.